old were you when you started rock hunting, and where did you start?
I started in my dad's tobacco fields. We had a farm, and at 3 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, I started picking up pretty stones in the field. And everybody locally called it isinglass, but as I got a little more education and did some research, it's actually mica.
And when did you realize, like at what age did you realize this was going to be a lifelong passion?
I was about 11 years old, and I was in the Boy Scouts, and I was working on my geology merit badge, and that's when I knew I had a passion for it.
And was your family into rock digging and rock hunting, or was this something you took on your own?
No, I took it on my own. My dad had farmed the farm for 40 years. My grandpa had been there another 40 before that. But as a kid, hoeing tobacco and priming tobacco and harvesting it, I always kept my eyes on the ground because you never know what's there.
Right. I understand that North Carolina is known as the Gemstone State.
That's correct.
Can you give me a little bit of background on the Appalachian Mountains?
Sure. The Appalachians, it's one of the oldest chains of mountains in the world. It goes from northern Alabama through Maine into Canada. And eons ago, they were the new mountains, like the Rockies are today. But with time and erosion and wind and freezing and thawing, they are not sharp, solid rock mountains now like the Rockies. They're rolling, soft, covered with trees, and nature has filed them down to what they are today.
I understand that Tiffany had a big presence in this area some years ago. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Tiffany's Jewelers out of New York, they were the premier jeweler in North America and probably the world when they started before the Civil War. And they came here, and over the years, at one time they had 90 operating mines from here to the Tennessee border.
And what happened to the mines?
Mainly, any gemstone is a commodity, and any mineral is a commodity. And when it quits producing, they move on, because why waste money digging for nothing?
Right.
So they found, and like you said earlier, we're known as the Gemstone State. The emerald is our state stone. And when I went to college, I went in East Tennessee, and I made a lot of friends back in the mid-'60s that owned mines and owned the mineral rights to them, and that's been 50, 60 years ago. I took lapidary class at Haywood Community College in 1994, and what surprised me, all the retired people that worked for Tiffany's and any of the gem companies in this country, they all retired to Western North Carolina. There's a lot of oxygen in the air because of all the trees. It's 10 degrees cooler in the mountains than here in the Piedmont. And for them to carry on their craft and not have to buy the expensive equipment, everybody took lapidary arts, cutting and grinding stones from the community colleges. And I got to meet all those retired cutters from Tiffany's that worked for years, decades in New York.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've read that you've been collecting stones for over 60 years.
That's right. I'm 71 years old. I'll be 72 in March. And God has always blessed me with God has always blessed me with the ability to find things.
It's really such a gift in so many ways. I wonder, can you tell us a little about what your 60-year-long collection includes? What type of stones?
Oh, gee. I've got everything from amethyst to Z, zircon. And in fact, there's a town up in western North Carolina called Zirconia, North Carolina. Now, that's not to be confused with cubic zirconium, which is cheap. It's a nickel a carat. You can buy 1,000,000 carats, and it's man-made, and it's nothing. But a natural zircon, to me, is as pretty as any diamond I've ever seen. And unless you're a gemologist, you can't tell the difference in them.
So after 60 years, why is it that you're selling your collection?
I've always loved kids. And
I understand you were a teacher for many years.
I've taught everything from preschool to university level. And if we don't look after our youth.
What is the future?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So your plan is to sell the stones and create something for the kids?
Sure. And with two of my dear friends, they have the land and the ability to build dorms and houses out of these trees. And with a little help with the money I'm making off the gems, we can see it come to fruition.
And what is the plan for the kids? What kinds of activities?
It's going to be a Christian-based skills camp. The skills being, how do you keep a checkbook? How do you balance it? How do you reconcile it? Our kids today don't know that.
I know.
They need to know how to build a fire when it's wet. They need to know how to cook over a campfire, how to shoot a .22 rifle, how to make a bow and arrow, how to sew and crochet and needlepoint.
Life skills. Basically.
Life skills, exactly.
And what will the kids pay to come to camp?
Right now our plans are that with donors and foundation money and gemstone monies and stamp collection monies, it won't cost the kids anything.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me today.
You're welcome.